Thank you for joining us. It is Mike from Mana Hoarders. In this video, we are bringing you a commander deck tech for a Gruul commander, Stonebrow Krosan hero. You can cast Stonebrow for 3, a red and a green. He is a 4/4 Centaur warrior with trample. His text reads, whenever a creature you control with trample attacks, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. In terms of power level, I'd rate this deck at around a 5 out of 10 on the power scale. We have a pretty straightforward strategy, so we are running plenty of cards that help us accomplish our goal. The final price for this build came in at $86.25. This does include the price of our commander and all of our lands. Now do bear in mind some of these prices will vary greatly depending on the quality of the cards you purchase, the vendor you use, and a variety of other factors. We will call this deck Stonebrow's Tribe of Tramplers. We will obviously be running plenty of creatures that have the trample text. We're going to have plenty of cards that will help pump up our board and help us run over our opponents. And lastly, we will have some cards that will benefit us from having creatures with power 4 or greater on our board. Now let's go ahead and dive into the deck. First up are our creatures. We are going to have 3 legends helping out Stonebrow. First is Cazur, Ruthless Stalker. Whenever a creature we control deals combat damage to a player, that creature will get a 1/1 counter put on it. We have Ilharg, the Raze-Boar. It has trample, and when it attacks, we can put a creature from our hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. Then we'll return that creature to our hand at the beginning of the next end step. This is a good way to sneak in some damage for some unsuspecting opponents. And we have Neheb, Dreadhorde Champion. This 5/4 with trample will allow us to discard cards, draw cards, and add red mana to our mana pool, which we can help cast some creatures out and really start helping overwhelm the board. And now for our non-legendary creatures, we have Battering Krasis. This 2/1 with trample has evolved. Whenever a creature with a higher power or toughness enters the board on our side of the field, it will get a 1/1 counter. Beast Whisperer, whenever we cast a creature spell, we will draw a card. Boartusk Liege, it has trample, and it will give other red creatures +1/+1 and other green creatures we control +1/+1. Challenger Troll, for each creature we control with power 4 or greater, they can't be blocked by more than one creature, meaning we'll definitely be getting in with a lot of trample damage. We also have Charging Tuskodon. If we will deal combat damage to a player, it deals double that damage instead. And Dwarven Berserker, when it is blocked, it gets +3/+0 and gains trample until end of turn. Helping us out with some early ramp, we have Elvish Mystic, which can tap to add a green. Excavation Mole is a 3/3 with trample that will enter and mill us 3. Fanatic of Xenagos has trample and tribute 1. If tribute wasn't paid, it will get +1/+1 and haste until end of turn. Garruk's Companion, just a vanilla 3/2 with trample. Giant Adephage, a 7/7 with trample, and whenever it deals combat damage, we will put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of Giant Adephage. We have the Elysian Tree Boy, which can tap to add 1 mana of any color, and if we control a creature with power 4 or greater, it will tap to add 2 mana of any one color instead. Khenra Charioteer, it is a 3/3 with trample, but it will give all other creatures we control trample. Kronch Wrangler, a 2/1 with trample. Whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under control, he's going to get a 1/1 counter. Llanowar Elves, another mana dork, can simply tap to add a green to our mana pool. Loyal Guardian, this 4/4 with trample, will give us a +1/+1 counter on each creature we control if we control our commander at the beginning of combat. Mwonvuli Beast Tracker, whenever it enters, we can search our library for a creature with Death Touch, Hexproof, Reach, or Trample. Obviously, we want the trample in this case. Reveal it, shuffle our library, and put that card on top. So it's kind of a semi-tutor. Prophetic Flamespeaker. It's got double strike and trample. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, we can exile the top card of our library, and we may play that card this turn. Proud Wildbonder reads, creatures we control with trample we may have this creature assign its combat damage as though it weren't blocked. We also have Pygmy Razorback. For 1 and a green, we get a 2/1 with trample. And for 2 red and a green, we have Quartzwood Crasher, an awesome card in this deck, one I am very excited to see in play. It is a 6/6 dinosaur beast with trample. Its text reads, whenever 1 or more creatures we control with trample deal combat damage to a player, we create an XX green dinosaur beast creature token with trample, where X is the amount of damage those creatures dealt to that player. Now obviously, we get in a bunch of tramplers, they get pumped up by Stonebrow, they deal damage, we get a giant green dinosaur creature token with trample itself, and then the next turn we deal even more damage, get an even bigger token, and it just spirals out of control. I am very happy and very excited that this card exists and we can run it in this deck. Rapacious One, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, will create that many 0/1 Eldrazi spawn creature tokens, and we can sack those to add colorless mana to our mana pool. Skarrg Guildmage, we can give creatures we control trample, and we can also make our lands into 4/4 elemental creatures. We have Slith Predator, this 1/1 with trample, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, it'll get a 1/1 counter. Spawnwrithe, whenever it deals combat damage, we'll put a token that's a copy of Spawnwrithe onto the battlefield. And Warden of the Chain, just a simple 4/4 for 3 with trample, can't attack unless we control another creature with power 4 or greater. Next up are our sorceries. We have Cleaver Riot, which will give creatures we control double strike until end of turn. Cultivate will let us get a land into our hand and one onto the battlefield tapped. Earthquake will pay X in a red. We can do X damage to each creature without flying in each player. Hunter's Prowess until end of turn. Target creature gets +3/+3, gains trample, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, we will draw that many cards. We also have Hurricane, will pay X and a green, and then all creatures with flying and all players will take X damage. Kodama's Reach does something very similar to Cultivate, land into the hand and one onto the battlefield tapped. Overwhelming Stampede, until end of turn, creatures we control gain trample and get +X/+X, where X is the greatest power among creatures we control. We have Rampant Growth. We can search our library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. We have Shatterstorm. We will destroy all artifacts, and they can't be regenerated. One of our win cons, one that a lot of people might hate seeing here, Triumph of the Hordes. Until end of turn, creatures we control get +1/+1, gain trample, and infect. Meaning, if they deal a combined 10 damage to any one player, that player is out of the game. And we have a Vandal Blast. We can destroy a target artifact we don't control, or if we overload it, we will destroy each artifact we don't control. And for 1, we have Warlord's Fury. Creatures we control will gain first strike until end of turn, and we can draw a card. Now we'll take a look at some of our enchantments. We have Alpha Authority. Enchanted creature has hexproof and can't be blocked by more than one creature. We have Colossal Majesty. At the beginning of our upkeep, if we control a creature with power 4 or greater, we will draw a card. We have Elemental Bond. Whenever a creature with power 3 or greater enters the battlefield under our control, we'll draw a card. Fiery Emancipation. If a source we control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals triple that damage to that permanent or player instead. Now, obviously, combining the +2/+2 ability from Stonebrow, plus plenty of tramplers, dealing triple damage to players can get out of hand and really win us games out of nowhere very quickly. We have Garruk's Uprising. When it enters the battlefield, if we control a creature with power 4 or greater, we'll draw a card. It will give creatures we control trample, and whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under our control, we will draw a card. We have Mark of Sakiko. Enchanted creature has, whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, add that much green mana to your mana pool. This mana doesn't cause mana burn, and until end of turn, this mana doesn't empty from your mana pool as phases end. Meaning we'll have plenty of green mana to use in our second main phase to cast more creatures, get more tramplers out on the board, and prepare for the next turn. We also have One with Nature. Whenever enchanted creature deals combat damage to a player, we can search our library for a basic land card, put it into play tapped, and then shuffle. And Rhythm of the Wild. Creature spells we control can't be countered, and non-token creatures we control have Riot, meaning they can enter the battlefield with either haste or a 1/1 counter on them. We have Snake Umbra. Enchanted creature will get +1/+1 and have, whenever this creature deals damage to an opponent, we can draw a card. And Wild Growth. We can enchant a land, and whenever that land is tapped for mana, it produces an additional green mana as well. For our instance, we have Abrade will deal 3 damage to target creature or destroy target artifact. Blinding Fog will prevent all damage that will be dealt to creatures this turn, and creatures we control will gain hexproof until end of turn. Demoralize, we can give all of our creatures a menace, or if we have Threshold, we make it so creatures can't block this turn. Fog will prevent all combat damage that will be dealt this turn. Hunter's Insight will choose target creature we control. When that creature deals combat damage to a player this turn, we will draw that many cards. Natural End, we can destroy target artifact or enchantment, and then we will gain 3 life. Natural State, we can destroy target artifact or enchantment with converted mana cost 3 or less. Naturalize will destroy target artifact or enchantment. Nature's Claim does the same, but its controller will gain 4 life. Roiling Regrowth, we will sacrifice the land, search our library for 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle our library. We have Sheltering Word. Target creature we control gains hexproof until end of turn, and we will gain life equal to that creature's toughness. We have Winds of Kalsisma, will prevent all combat damage that will be dealt this turn. It also have Ferocious. If we control a creature with power 4 or greater, instead we will prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn by creatures our opponents control. And Withstand Death. Target creature will gain indestructible until end of turn. And last but not least are our lands. We have Skarrg the Rage Pits. It can tap to add a colorless to our mana pool, or we can pay a red or green, tap it, and target creature will get +1/+1 and gain trample until end of turn. We will also include 17 basic mountains and 17 basic forests. And just like that, we reached the end of another Commander Deck Tech. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe down below, tell your friends about us, and leave a comment. Let us know who you would like to see us build around in the future. We really appreciate the support.